First of all, welcome to the kickoff meeting of the Cheshire Rail Trail South Planning Project. Thanks for taking an hour this afternoon to hear about the project, participate in some discussion. My name is Henry Underwood, and I'm a GIS specialist and planner at Southwest Region Planning Commission. We're essentially facilitating this project with your input. And the purpose, as I said, is to kick off the project. We'll have some open discussion. I'll tell you about the scope and the timeline, and there'll be time for questions and answers. Great, okay. Welcome the couple of folks who've just joined. We will move on to, well, actually, before I leave this slide, when I say Cheshire Rail Trail South, how the project is defining that is with this bright dark red line extending kind of at the intersection with the Ashuelot Rail Trail south to roughly the Massachusetts state line. Okay, so we can move on to introductions. Know many of you, but got some new faces as well. And I think what I'll do is start off and introduce myself again, and then invite municipal members from each of the 5 towns, and then others to introduce yourselves. So I mentioned my name's Henry Underwood. I'm a planner at Southwest Region Planning, and I'm working on this project with my colleague, Todd. If you could briefly introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. Todd Horner. As Henry said, I'm a partner in crime at SWRPC. I'm a planner and avid user of the rail trail, so really excited about this project.
Thanks, Todd. So I'll just start with folks in Keene, and if you could just state your name and your affiliation or role within your community, that would be great. I saw Will Schaffman. Do you want to start it off?
Sure thing. Will Schaffman. I work for the City of Keene Community Development Department, also the chair of the Monadnock Alliance for Sustainable Transportation. And my capacity at the city is a GIS technician and mapper like Henry, as well as sort of a transportation bicycle ped planner. Thanks.
Thanks, Will. And as far as other city staff, I'm expecting participation from Andy Bohannon, who is the rec director. He couldn't make this meeting. Are there any other staff from the city?
I don't see anybody.
Thanks. Okay, so moving south, folks from Swanzey. Maybe I'll start off. I see Michael Branley, Town Administrator. If you could say hello.
He's probably on mute.
Yeah, that's fine. So Michael Branley's joined as Town Administrator. How about, I see Mike Kowalczyk is joined. Could you say hello?
Yes, my name is Mike Kowalczyk. I chair the Rail Trail group in Swanzey, and I also lead the Monadnock Region Rail Trail Collaborative.
Thanks, Mike. Other folks may expect to see, Matthew Bachler. Could you say hello?
Hi, Henry. I'm Matthew Bachler with the town of Swanzey. I'm the Director of Planning and Economic Development for the town, and thanks for organizing this.
Thanks for joining, Matt. Are there other staff or folks in Swansea government here tonight?
Okay. I don't see anyone else right now, Henry.
Okay, thanks for the help. My participants list is taller than my screen. It's a good thing. So moving down to Marlborough, kind of reached out to a bunch of folks here. I see Larry Robinson, could you say hello?
Yeah, hi, I'm Larry Robinson, a lifetime resident of the town of Marlborough, former selectman, and I am on the board of directors for Southwest Regional Planning Commission.
Thanks for joining, Larry. Are there others from the town of Marlborough here tonight?
I don't see any, Henry.
Thanks. Well, we'll keep an eye out for some others and just move on down the line to the town of Troy. And I want to say I might see Mary Gilds. If you're here, Mary, say hello if you could. So I'm not are there any others from the town of Troy here tonight? Okay, besides myself, that is. We'll keep moving on. Moving down to the town of Fitzwilliam. Could someone jump in and say hello if you're joining us from the town? Okay, I see a couple people. They might not be quite tuned in, but
Henry?
Yeah. Oh, hi, Rick.
Yeah, my name's Rick Brackett and I live in Fitzwilliam, but I'm no longer on the conscom at this point in time. So my affiliation is elsewhere, but I live there.
Thanks, Rick. And like you and others, you kind of have multiple affiliations in a way. We talked to some folks last week from Fitzwilliam. Well, hopefully they can join us the next meeting or watch this recording later. So that leaves us to other, which might be as a little bit bigger group. And I'll just kind of go down my participants list and see if I got the name right. And if you could just say hello and introduce yourself briefly. I think I see, is it Frank Richter?
Yes, hello. Board of Directors, Pathways for Keene.
Thanks for taking some time, Frank. Laura Sussman?
Hi, yes. Monadnock Happy Trails, Friends of Pisgah, New Hampshire Arabian Horse Association, and New Hampshire Horse Council.
Cool. Thanks, Laura. Rick Ward.
Yes, Rick Ward here, Board of Selectmen in Winchendon, Mass, on the border.
Great. Thanks for joining tonight. Tom Dustin.
Yeah, Tom Dustin. I live in Chesterfield, but I'm the coordinator of the Wintastic and Monadnock Trail Coalition. Our trail runs from Brattleboro to Mount Monadnock, and we use, this is significant for us, this meeting, because we use the rail trail from Whitcomb's Mill Road to Troy Depot. So this obviously covers quite a bit of that area that's the subject of this meeting. So thank you very much, Henry.
Thanks, Tom, and thanks for the context. I see there's someone on my participants list, Avis. If you could say hello.
Hi. Yes, hi, Avis Rosenfield. And I live in Deerfield, and I'm part of New Hampshire Horse Council, Granite State Carriage, Cycling Group, also Dairy Trail Riders and Rockingham Riding Club. I'm also sitting on 2 committees with the state of New Hampshire, and we are looking at the development for tourism as well as local use of the rail trails and looking at the possibilities of how can we use these trails and give people some loops and give them the information while they're on the trail so that they know where they are when they're on the trail, how to get off trail, on trail, for services, etc. So I'm looking at what I have in front of me from GPI, which is a company that is partnered with the state of New Hampshire on these rail trails. They've given us a map that shows us all the trails throughout the state that are owned by the state, which some people aren't familiar with the fact that some are owned and some are not owned by the state.
Yeah.
So that's an education in itself. Some are privately owned, some are owned by towns.
Yeah. Thanks for joining. Avis is referring to the state's update to their trails plan. I'll cover that in a little bit in a moment and provide some of the details about the Cheshire Rail Trail, who owns it, etc. I see Chuck Redfern, I think. You're next on my list.
Yes, you do. Chuck Redfern, New Hampshire Rail Trails Coalition. And I'm a board member, and I'm also a member of Pathways for Keene locally.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chuck. And just to pause for a minute, if your organization has contact info or website information that you'd like to share with the group, feel free to place that in the chat for others to look at. So next on the list, first name Don. I'm not on my original invite list. Hi, Don.
Sorry. I hope it's okay that I'm here. I was passed along the information from another attendee, and it's certainly something that I'm interested in. But Don Lucier, city engineer in Keene.
Thanks for joining, Don. You're absolutely welcome. And just to say it now, these meetings are open to the public for scheduling purposes. I reach out to a subset of folks, and you're welcome to circulate these announcements as widely as you care to. We notice these meetings as public meetings. And let's see, I think we covered Frank. My participants list changed. Jesse Powers, I think you're next.
Hi, my name is Jessie Creedy Powers. I work for the state of New Hampshire for New Hampshire State Parks. I'm the volunteer program coordinator, and I was forwarded this from one of the volunteer groups I work with, and just looking forward to learning a little bit more about the project.
Thanks for joining, Jesse. Kevin Woolley.
Kevin Woolley in the Fitzwilliam Conservation Commission, and obviously in being Fitzwilliam, we're interested in any way we can help you out with this project.
Thanks for coming, Kevin. Let's see, who am I missing? Roland Russell.
I'm Roland Russell. I work at Antioch University and coordinate our adoption of sections of both the Cheshire and the Ashuelot Rail Trails. I'm also on the City of Keene's Bike and Pedestrian Path Advisory Committee, and was on the Ashuelot planning group, similar to this group. And I have walked, I think, every foot of the Cheshire Rail Trail that's official, and most of the ones that are unofficial as well.
Cool. Great to have you and others who participated in our Ashuelot pilot project. All right, Sherry Bean.
Hi everyone, Sherry Bean from the Montechusett Regional Planning Commission in North Central Massachusetts. I'm here to help you connect to Winchendon, I hope.
Cool, exciting possibility. Thanks for coming tonight. And I think I'm getting towards the bottom of the list. Tracy Murphy.
Hi, I'm Tracy Murphy. I'm the Director of Planning and Development for the town of Winchendon, Massachusetts. And we hope that you can get connected to, or we can connect to each other.
There's got to be a way, right? So who am I missing? Whose name have I not mentioned that needs to introduce themselves?
Hey, Henry, Steve Fortier here. Represent the Greater Keene Chamber of Commerce, and I'm an active user of the Ashuelot and Cheshire Rail Trails.
Thanks for coming, Steve. Sorry to miss you in the list.
Sorry.
Are there others that I missed? Okay, great. Well, we won't do this, for the other two planned meetings, but it's nice to put some voices to names and some videos to names. Took a little more time than I planned, but that's all right. We'll move on here. As I said, to provide a little bit of context about rail trails in New Hampshire and our region. A lot of the data comes from a 2005 inventory and plan, and it identified over 300 miles of trail in the state that were owned and managed by the state. You can see our share of that is pretty high as a percentage, you know, well over a quarter, around 90 miles in our region. And the focus of this project is part of the Cheshire branch, which was originally, well, the total length is about 42 miles. Some other kind of fast facts. The railroad opened in 1849 and was abandoned in 1972. It has right-of-way widths, you know, that vary, of course, but can be anywhere from 82.5 to 99 feet wide. It includes 36 rail bridges over its total length. And if you didn't know, wintertime use by snowmobiles is allowed throughout most sections of the corridor. And the corridor itself was purchased through federal funds in the 90s. So a little bit of context on this corridor, and was kind of alluded to earlier, the state is in the process of updating this inventory and creating a new planning document for the state's rail trails. You can visit that link for more information. This project is kind of on somewhat of a parallel track. This is complementary information to that process, but we also want to encourage you to look out at the work that consultant is doing, and we'll, you know, mention those opportunities as they come up. Great. That is the quick introduction. Trying to keep this a little bit fast, but the purpose of bringing this working group together is to focus on a project to develop a plan, you know, approximately 10-year plan of improvements for this section of trail. And to do that, we'll go through some data collection activities, public outreach activities, but you know, roughly as you can see here, in approximately the spring timeframe, our goal is to publish a planning document with this group's and others' vision for the trail over that period, and a document of specific projects, you know, where resources might come to make those a reality. I'll just explain this a bit more, but here we are in December at the first of 3 project advisory meetings, project working group meetings. These are the kind of tentative dates of the other meetings, I would say plus or minus a month. We'll get those polls out soon. And you can see some of the other components of the project that I'll talk about in a little more detail in a minute. Some of them have results that are going to be sent to this group via email for you to look at, weigh in on. Others will present and make the focus of one of the project meetings. But generally, the recipe is look at existing conditions, collect data, conduct outreach to the general public, to specific stakeholder groups, bring everything together with your help in a vision and plan to improve the trail. The project working group itself, you know, I'd say your involvement is partly up to you. Our goal is that folks can consistently join all of the 3 meetings and be on the lookout for prompts from staff to help, for example, promote the survey. And when I say the working group, the focus of the scheduling has been with the municipal staff and volunteers, but there's this larger stakeholder group that we're consistently inviting to all meetings as well. And of course, staff, we're kind of at the middle, coordinating, taking on some of the heavy lifting of the project. And I'll keep going at a high level through the tasks mentioned on the scope, and then we can stop for questions. The meetings I've sort of already covered. We envisioned 3 of them. The next 2 might be a little longer than this one because of how much we want to cover, but we're going to try to keep them as close to an hour as possible and cover those items listed below. Under task 3, there were 3 components of what we're calling an existing conditions assessment. And one of those involves a report on quantifying how many people use the trail. So for example, over the spring and summer, we had some automated equipment counting people walking and biking at key locations. We'll be able to share information about how many people per day use those sections, if they were walking, if they were riding their bike, and even extrapolate to give you some idea of how many people are on the trail in a given year. We'll also provide maps to this group and the general public. You can see some of those now, like the project base map via our website. In the future, we'll release maps that show the trail condition on certain areas. Is it rough? Is it smooth? What do the photos look like at a certain section of trail? We're also finalizing a literature review. This was kind of a desktop search for planning documents, policies, previous studies that somehow could inform our combined work on this project. You know, what have people said they're interested in already? What issues have already been brought up? That sort of thing. So those are the kind of the key ingredients to the existing conditions assessment. Those are all of that is kind of falling on SWRPC to develop and share with you what we learned. The public outreach tasks, you know, there's roughly 3 of them. If you've been to the project webpage, you've seen the project's online survey. It takes about 7 minutes long, and the purpose is to learn about specific issues on the trails. People can write those in a narrative form. They're also directed to a map to pinpoint a location. We learn about how people use the trail, at what times of year, and learn about what people see as high needs for improvement. That I'll cover later, but that will be open for at least the next couple months. We've already conducted a number of telephone and Zoom interviews. Todd Horner has taken the lead on that. We'll be looking to schedule additional interviews with folks over the next month or 2. The idea is to have a deeper discussion than we can have in a group setting. And of course, the project webpage will be maintained throughout the project. You'll find the deliverables I mentioned, meeting details, the agendas, slide decks, etc. Feedback welcome on that. So getting more to where we're digesting the information, getting closer to the plan. What we see as kind of the analysis is taking into account what we learned from the existing condition assessment, the mapping, the data collection, the outreach to draft vision, goals, and objectives, and that project list, that implementation plan. And the plan itself, again, this is kind of the final deliverable to the project. It would be released in the May timeframe, and it would document the previous activities and be kind of the permanent place to learn about the trail and where there's been consensus to make improvements. So that was a brief overview of the scope. There's time for a couple of questions. So I'll turn to you to unmute yourself or raise your hand.
Henry?
Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
Am I on? Yeah, I'm just curious about how, I know that a plan is afoot to put a bridge across Route 101 and fix the rail trail between Eastern Avenue and 101. I assume we'll sort of be coordinating with that somehow?
Yeah, I think the improvement you're mentioning is kind of like a need that's already been kind of fleshed out that we know quite a lot about. That would be an example of something that would appear in the implementation plan.
Hi, this is Mike Henry.
Hi, Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, so I want to make sure we are including in the plan how proposals or ways that we could connect with the North Central Pathway down in Winchton. Is that correct?
Yeah, so absolutely. I think that the scope or maybe the extent of this project really does include whatever the distance is of that missing link. So.
Great, okay, good.
Other questions on the timeline or the activities I talked about?
Henry, a quick question.
Yeah.
So the plan, I guess 2021 April is the final plan draft. Steps beyond that would be to pass this along to the various municipalities, or what's the execution plan once the plan is in place?
Yeah, great question. So I think it will vary based on the strategy or the project. But I guess at a high level, there is the opportunity for towns to formally adopt the plan, and sometimes there's things like this aren't adopted as an appendix to a master plan. So that shows that there's kind of buy-in at the municipal level. As far as the implementation of the projects themselves, that's going to vary depending on who owns the section of trail, who the funders might be, things like that. But to be clear, what SWRPC is offering is kind of planning, technical assistance, and facilitation for this project. It's going to take, all of these things will take kind of many groups to execute.
So another quick question, Henry, based on something you just said, is the trail, the section that we're talking about, is that all owned by the state of New Hampshire or some of it privately owned?
So some of it is owned by the city of Keene, but the majority of it is owned by DOT, New Hampshire Department of Transportation, with agreements to Bureau of Trails. I mean, I'm not aware of private ownership at this point. That would be more important for connecting trails that people might be interested in.
Right.
All right. Well, let's keep on moving on the agenda. I invite you to drop questions in the chat if things come up about the scope. Todd and I will pick through those and make sure we follow up with you. I wanted to move now to kind of another round table or around the Zoom room, and with the ask that you think about what you see as the most important goals or things you'd like to see happen to the trail. And I'd like to give everyone just a minute to mention those. And it's fine if you want to pass, but kind of what's on the tip of mind will help staff think about questions for future interviews, draft vision statement, goals, objectives, be on the lookout for project ideas. So again, we're just, there's no wrong answers here. If you have things to share, be very beneficial. Why don't I start just north to south again in Keene, and invite Will or others or Don to chime in there. Top goals up to 3.
Well, I think you guys heard a little bit from Tom Dustin about the proposed connection and the overpass of 101. It's known to us as the Transportation Heritage Trail project. So I really think, I mean, that's really the focus of what we're trying to do along the Cheshire Rail Trail in Keene at the moment. Is pull all that together with some funding and possibly with the help of Swanzey, our neighbor to the south, you know, because they have a component there that ties right into that section off of Joslin Station Road. And the project that they have, I believe, funded through the state TAP program. So anyway, there's the overpass component. They're shoring up the Stone Arch Bridge for more frequent and heavy pedestrian traffic with some safety railings and other features that need to be installed and improved on that structure. And then the section of trail from the current Eastern Ave trailhead to where the overpass would be installed. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, those are really, I think, the 3 focus areas for us. It sounds like one project and we sort of call it one project, but in fact, it's really like probably 4 projects and a considerable amount of work and effort. So Don can chime in and add anything he'd like if he's on the line.
Yeah, I'm here, Will. I think that's a good summary. I think my top 3 goals, number 1, 2, and 3, are all the Transportation Heritage Trail. And if I manage to get that done during my career, I'll be pleased with myself. You know, besides the bridge over Route 101, there is the crossing at Swanzey Factory Road to be considered. I see that as an opportunity for trailhead parking, in addition to potentially a location where a 3rd historic bridge could go. So that's kind of my focus as well.
Thank you both for sharing. And just to throw it out there, welcome any thoughts about non-infrastructure related things. Maybe it's an idea about branding or signage or just public awareness. Those are all kind of things that the group can talk about and document in the plan.
Yeah, really quickly, I would say the city is definitely focused, you know, I guess, not to get away from some of those projects that you're talking about. We are trying to focus in partnership with Swanzey to a degree, trying to flesh out some ideas on what some branding might look like and what some funding might look like that could help support those efforts for the rail trail, for Cheshire and even possibly Ashuelot, but also trying to flesh out some funding that would make some of these signs available for like multiple towns in our region, you know what I mean? So that the trails are more branded rather than just like, say, like the segment in Keene. Because I think that helps with promotion and regional connectivity and getting people, you know, from locations along our trail systems here, you know, to other towns. So I would just add that.
Cool. So I'll just keep moving south. You could try to touch on everyone at least briefly. Remembering attendees from Swanzey, Matthew Bachler, you still here?
I am here. So I would echo what my colleagues in Keene mentioned just regarding the 101 overpass and kind of making that connection between the Cheshire Trail in Keene and Swanzey, where it comes together there next to our shared municipal boundary. I would also add, something I would like to see addressed for the Swanzey section of the trail is just improved access. So trying to create a parking area just to make it easier for folks to get onto the trail. There's just a long stretch of trail that is hard to access. So that would be a big thing for me. And then I know Southwest Region Planning Commission did a great job with this, with the Ashuelot plan, but just putting together a really comprehensive, easy to navigate guide in terms of funding sources for trail improvement projects. Seeing that again, I think would be really beneficial.
Great suggestions. Thanks, Matthew. Michael Brandling, invite you to chime in if you have some top goals.
Hi, Henry. Yes, I'm here. Sorry if I missed you on the introductions. I stepped out for a minute and then you were in the middle of them. So if I ignored you, I wasn't there ignoring you. Appreciate the opportunity. I'll withhold or reserve my time for Mike Kowalczyk and Matthew. I'm sure they're better versed. So I support whatever goals they express.
Thanks, Michael. I guess that's your cue, Mike.
Okay, so first, echo everything Will said, Don said, Matthew said. I don't know if it was mentioned to get a bridge over Swanzey Factory Road as well. I can't remember if that was mentioned, but I'd like to throw that in there too to make that happen. And as I mentioned earlier, make the connection with the North Central Pathway down in Winchendon, because if we can do that, that really widens the network quite a bit. And if you haven't been on any of the rail trails in Mass, they're beautiful. So that would really help a lot there. And then and then the parking, as Matthew said. So those are my big ones.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think that's everyone from Swanzey. Jump in, someone interrupt me if I'm missing you. Let's move on to Marlborough and Larry Robson. Do you have any comments on top goals?
I'm new to the process, but we had been talking about a possible parking access off of the Depot Road right past the overpass, and maybe possibly parking up near the state highway bound on Route 12, so there's better access. We have just a little piece of the project. We want to make sure that the overpass on Depot is shored up, and the rest of the trail up almost all the way to Troy is in pretty good shape. I would like to see the section down near the old Behringer Auto place possibly look a little better than it is. Thank you.
Thanks, Larry. And I think for the time being, there aren't others from Marlborough. So moving on to Troy. Has anyone joined from the town of Troy? Okay, well, we'll catch up with Troy folks next time, and continue on to Fitzwilliam. Although, am I still right that it's only Rick, former Conservation Commission member from the town?
No, you're not correct. It's Paul Kotola.
Oh, great. Sorry, Paul. You introduced yourself afterwards. Apologies.
Kevin Woolley on the Fitzwilliam Conservation Commission.
Okay. Paul, why don't you go ahead and share a couple top goals?
Well, I'm chair of the Conservation Commission. We haven't had a chance to really converse about what our priorities might be, but there are a few things to come to mind for me right away. We have a crossing on Highway 119, which is probably the busiest road on the rail trail. And unfortunately, that crossing used to be a tunnel and we filled it in. So there's no tunnel anymore. And plus there's a excavated hard rock gorge right next to that crossing, which is unusable as a trail because it's so wet. In addition to that, we removed a nice stone archway railroad bridge across Royalston Road. So those areas are the things that occur to me right away as something that might be addressed. They're major obstacles in terms of making use of the trail in that particular area. Way down at the southern end of town on Highway 12, there's also a crossing, although I don't know what the particular situation is down there. I just haven't been down there recently. So those are the kinds of things that present, to me at least off the top of my head, major sort of structural difficulties in our part of the trail. The other things that occur to me are eventually getting to the point where there's good information for the public regarding access and connections to other trails. The town of Fitzwilliam has a number of trails on town property, but also cultural and historical information that's associated with different sections of the trail. So those, I think, are some of the things that I'd like to see developed. There may be other ideas for other Concom members, but we just haven't had a chance to do a serious conversation yet.
That's a great list, Paul. And this is just kind of what's on kind of top of mind for folks. There'll be more opportunities to make the list longer and add detail. So I also missed Kevin from Fitzwilliam. Would you like to share a couple of top goals?
Basically, I'll kind of echo a recreation department people was in the other meeting with Todd, and what I heard was a lot of the condition of the trail itself. There's a lot of areas very sandy. They're not passable with with regular bikes, and I think Paul added quite a bit to that too. But that, in general, that was what we were hearing. And there's a wash machine on the side of the trail in one place, so some cleanup probably needs to be done.
Thanks, Kevin. So let's, I guess, turn to the broader group, and I'll just kind of go down my chat list again. So Laura Sussman, welcome. Any goals from your perspective?
Yes, thank you. Equestrian access is important to my particular groups, including large enough parking for horse trailers. There's a couple of really good spots. The Chamberlain Conservation Area is perfect for us. We've used it several times and it's wonderful. But an area like that in several places along the trail would be wonderful. Assuring that the bridges are safely built for horses, the width and the stringers underneath. Generally, a bridge needs 3 stringers to be safe for horses, carry the weight. Also, easily accessed maps that tell us exactly where we are when we're there. The kiosks along the area are very, very helpful. But if there's something that we could print off and say have in your pocket, that would be wonderful too. The GPS isn't always really handy. It doesn't always come in some of these places, especially when you're in a spot where there's been excavation of the rock and you kind of look at the phone and go, oh, wow, look at that. No, I'm not there. But, and then the connecting with Mass, that's a wonderful idea. That would be perfect. Like to park at the Chamberlain area and head down into Mass would be wonderful. So that's it for now.
Thanks, Laura. So just going down my list alphabetically again, Avis.
Yes, I think Laura hit most of the key points. Safety is also one of the points that I'd like to emphasize because there's an etiquette as to who yields to whom on a trail relative to horses, hikers, and bikers. So I think having that posted at key points along with points of interest, along with some identification points, like you're in town X, you're at mile X, something like that. If GPS is not going to hold a signal all the way along the way, then that would be significant to have that information available.
Thanks. Common theme, mapping, signage, information. So going down, Rick Ward.
Yes, we have an excellent trail from Winchendon to Gardner, Mass. If we could connect with New Hampshire, that would be outstanding. I mean, that would, I mean, imagine biking all the way to Keene. I mean, just unbelievable.
Just to ask a quick question, is there an available road bed, a railroad bed that's, is the challenge that it's privately owned now?
Tracy Murphy can probably answer that better than I can.
It is privately owned, but we're looking into trying to find ways to acquire it. If I can just piggyback on Selectman Ward's comments, something that's interesting is we have a large population in Winchendon that snowmobiles, and to be able to connect them to the New Hampshire trail system is just exceptional as well. So that's that's another goal that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Okay, just going down my own list, Tom Dustin is next.
Yeah, just mentioning a couple of things. One is on the question of signage, which I think is a great idea, but we've got to make sure we have some type of control over the signage, because it would be too bad to have, you know, signs all over the place on the rail trail that are, you know, just advertising signs and stuff. So that's one thing. Second thing, Frank mentioned this too, and I just want to mention it again. The bridge over 101 and over Swanzey Factory Road are very important, but those of you who have walked the rail trail from Eastern Ave to 101, as I did with Frank and Wink Faulkner, it's a jungle. So that's we shouldn't just assume that, oh, that'll be an easy task to do that. That's an important part of the bridge project, is that section. And needs culvert work, and you know, it's a real mess out there.
So Tom, I can speak to that a little bit. This is Don Liss here from Keene. Yeah, and Will mentioned that, you know, this is really more like 4 projects for us. Right now we have in our capital improvement plan for a few years out, I'm afraid, but we do have several years of construction and a plan for sort of phasing the work. And phase 1 of that would be to rebuild the rail trail from Eastern Ave to the future bridge site.
Terrific.
We've identified that the total project, just, you know, for a little context, between the Stone Arch Bridge and the reuse of DOT's bridge over 101, trailhead parking at Swanzey Factory Road, and fixing Eastern Ave, or from Eastern Ave to 101, it's about $2.5 million worth of work that we're estimating. So it's a big nut.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. So my list jostled around again, but I think at the top now that I haven't talked to or heard from is Bruce. Bruce, would you like to share a couple?
Yes, thank you, Henry. Representing the snowmobile population, and I do thank Tracy for bringing that up. We've been successful in connecting the Monadnock Rail Trail to the Cheshire Rail Trail, but we have not been successful in connecting Cheshire to Ashuelot. Our top priority would be a connecting trail just south of Keene to connect those two trails. This would give us westward capability. I think that connector trail would be important to the equestrian population as well. as a wider range of trail mileage to enjoy. So that would be our number one priority is connector to Ashuelot. As far as Keene is concerned, we have to turn our groomers around just south of the Keene town line, city line. So whether or not it would be beneficial to change any city bylaws to allow snowmobiling into city within the city lines, that's a pretty big discussion. But if there are no trails, I mean, we're not interested in going down city sidewalks. That's not what we do. So I guess the question would be, is there a connector or trail north of Keene that we might be interested in connecting with, and therefore go around Keene? So that's a bigger discussion. But as far as some of the other items that were mentioned, Tom mentioned sign control. Tom, the Bureau of Trails is responsible for approval of any sign that's erected on the rail beds. So no fear there. Any sign that's not approved will be taken down by us. And so, that is our responsibility as a maintenance arm of the Bureau of Trails. For the last 50 years, we've been maintaining the Cheshire Trail, Monadnock Trail, and so that's part of our responsibility. So no fear there, Tom.
Thanks.
And as far as the pathway in Winchendon connecting to the Ashuelot, to the Cheshire, that trail terminates in a downtown area. So to get through downtown would be in my estimation, a major project. You're right across, I won't say Main Street because it's Central Street, but you may want to consider it to be Main Street. And to get to the other side of the town, I think would be a major project. But not to say that it's not doable. It's just that you're cutting across town streets, busy town streets. So we were successful. The snowmobiles were successful in getting crossings at 119 and 202 marked with pedestrian crossing signs. We negotiated that with New Hampshire DOT. We asked for painted lines and flashing lights, and they voted that down. So we were successful in as much as we did get the warning signs on approach and at the trail crossing. So that was good. But obviously our interest is snowmobiles from December 15th to April 15th. And those dates, by the way, don't change. Trails are open December 15th to April 15th. So we control the gates. Those gates will be open December 15th and closed April 15th. So, we can work to that end.
Thanks, Bruce, for sharing some priorities and filling us in a little bit about what you've been working on recently. So I'm getting to the point where I have to rush through some of the later part of the agenda that I still need to cover. I do want to keep us on time. I'd like to invite folks to use the raise hand feature if you'd like to share kind of your top goals or priorities. And I'll just kind of randomly pick a couple more folks. Otherwise, if you're thinking of things, I invite you to put those in the chat, and we'll read through those after the meeting. Not seeing any hands up, so I'm going to keep us moving and cover the last parts of the agenda. So wanted to share some resources that are available now. In some cases, we could benefit from your help in promoting within your networks. One is the online survey. This is linked on our webpage. We're able to generate a unique link just for your organization if you'd like to use one and share one. But we have about 60 or so responses so far. We'd like to get at least a couple hundred. I'll be following up this meeting with some instructions on how you can share this within your networks. Things like template Facebook posts, for example. So I encourage you to check that out, and we'll give you some notice about when we need to close it around end of January or February. Again, on our website, part of that element of documenting existing conditions, since we can't all be around some nice poster maps to mark them up, we've tried to create the online and interactive version of that process. You can visit the challenges and opportunities map. You can upload photos you've taken of the trail to document what you see as an opportunity. Maybe it's for an improved parking area or a challenge. The 119 crossing in Fitzwilliam that's been kind of filled in, and put those on the map. You'll get some time to write a description, and others will see this, what you listed, be able to react to it, like it. And the map even works on mobile devices if you have mobile service. The webpage, it's been shared in my emails, but again, this will be kind of a clearinghouse for information about the project, and we'll write via email to the group when there are updates or new info available. That's kind of the quick summary. The next meeting would be in a couple months. We'll initiate a poll to find out what the best times are. And in between now and that time, staff will be working on creating some of the technical memo deliverables to share with the group, setting up interviews or phone meetings with people to have more in-depth discussions about issues you're seeing, improvements that could make their way to the implementation plan. And that is pretty much all from my end. We have a couple minutes left, and just like to open it up for questions from anyone.
Hey, Henry, do you mind if I jump in for a second?
Please go ahead.
I just wanted to know, I don't know if I might have missed this, but did you note the Google Street View data that you collected?
No. So yeah, it's a good thing to point out. It's getting colder, maybe we're not on the trail as much or as often anymore. It's kind of the lull between the snowmobile season. You can visit the trail today kind of virtually with a service called Google Maps Street View, and encourage you to look up Google Maps on your computer and learn how to use the Street View feature. You kind of place a virtual little orange man on the trail, and it gives you a 360-degree view of the roads. But more recently, Todd and I have collected images for the trails too. So please check that out. And I see a question from Chuck. Go ahead.
Hi, yeah, Chuck Redfern here. I just wanted to comment that I think it would be a great idea. I know a few years ago, I got contacted by one of the snowmobile club presidents in Swanzey, and he was attempting to make that connection between the Cheshire Rail Trail and the Ashuelot Rail Trail. And he wanted cooperation, or he needed cooperation from Keene State College, and they were reluctant to cooperate. And so I think with Senator Jay Kahn, who was former vice president of Keene State, that he'd be more receptive to being a conduit for opening discussion for that possibility. It doesn't have to be a paved trail. It can be stone dust, crushed stone dust, or something less expensive than paved. And because I think that would accommodate everybody, equestrians, snowmobilers, walkers, hikers. The only thing is, I heard that Keene State's having a problem with ATVs, and we've got to kind of focus a little bit on some concerns that they may have in that regard. Other than that, I think the idea is great. It's outside the bypass system, and it would make for a good shortcut.
Thanks for the suggestions, Chuck, and sorry to short you on the goal section earlier. So we're at 5 now. I'll stay on for a couple more minutes, look through the chat, but we'd like to end the meeting now and thank you all for attending. I'll be in touch later this week with some updates, for example, to help promote the survey via email. Be on the lookout for those.